Hey everybody, welcome to another night of Walk It Out. My name is Gretchen Cannon. I am the community pastor at Grace Church in Choctaw. And this is one of my very best friends, Jody Brown.
Hi.
And she also is on staff at Grace Church as our connections pastor. But we are continuing the series on the Eastern Oklahoma County Resource Center, just to bring awareness, yes, model the shirt, just to bring awareness and more definition to it for those that have never heard of it or those that have heard it but don't know what it's about. And so in this series, we hope to bring more understanding to it. And so Jody, if you'll just share with them like how you're involved, maybe let's start with right now. Like, how is Jody Brown involved?
Well, I am currently on the board, and I also am the volunteer coordinator for Grace Church. So any volunteers that we need for the services that the building provides, then they don't have to. They go through me.
Yeah.
And we get them lined out and everything.
Because we're a partner church. So if you're watching and you're not a part of a partner church, then you can just contact the Resource Center directly, either through the website, EOCRC.org, or you can call 405-297-4998. I said it without looking at the phone number. Yeah. But if you are part of one of our partner churches, just get with, you'll have a volunteer coordinator on staff or that is doing the role there. And so we go through Jody to get our scheduling and different things.
Right.
And then you also volunteer here, though.
I do.
Not just on the board, but your other volunteer role is?
I'm an advisor. Well, I've done advisor and Samaritan right now.
Yeah.
So.
And so I won't say which one is your favorite, but which one, like, tell them a little bit about your experience as it. Because those are two things, like Jeff, the director of the facility here, I call it the headquarters in this building. But the director here of the operations that come out of here, he and I visited. He is a Samaritan, and I volunteer as an advisor. He volunteers as a Samaritan. And so we visited a little bit about our experience and how we would define it, but share with them about yours.
Okay. I'll start with the advisor. So the advisor are the ones that are actually here on site on pantry days. And they take, instead of it just kind of being an open door, if you need groceries, come get them, it's more by appointment. And that is on purpose because their heart, EOCRC's heart is not necessarily to get food to people, but to get in front of the people who need the food so that we can share the gospel with them and we can
help meet their other needs.
Right. Integrate in life with them. So if there's other things that they need, one of the ways that I've explained it to our Grace Church body is that we want to get in their life, or at least get in front of them where we can offer to help them get to a place where they're thriving instead of just trying to survive from day to day.
Right, yeah.
And so one of the things I think I love most about being an advisor is I love being able to help somebody feel at home and loved in probably a situation that feels very vulnerable and it could carry a lot of shame with it. It carries all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But to just treat them like I would treat anyone else that walked through the door and love on them and laugh with them and smile with them, encourage them, pray with them. It's a very short window of time. It's only an hour. And at that point, once we've had that time with them and they've got their groceries and they went on and went home, we've communicated that a Samaritan will reach out. So it's out of, I think it's in Luke, about the Good Samaritan, who our neighbors are. We call the community that comes in, we call them our neighbors, and we connect them with Samaritans. And the Samaritan then calls them, follows up with their visit, and just starts to form relationship with them. And then through conversation, and some of the neighbors won't. We've had a couple that they're not interested in the relationship part of it for whatever reason. But we have had some that have just jumped right in with us and have had other needs come up, and listening to their language, knowing like maybe they're having trouble paying rent. And then we can start talking to them about, well, hey, let's talk about how much money you have coming in, and let's talk about like, how are you spending your money? Is there ways that it could be done differently? And it's a hard time right now because food stamps have been decreased considerably. Like the COVID, there's a
COVID benefit thing that
has been taken away. So almost everybody's food stamps have been cut in half, if not more.
Right.
And they're having to navigate that with grocery prices that are at an all-time.
Have not went down.
Right. Yeah. They have not. And even those of us that are not living paycheck to paycheck are trying to navigate
our own budgets.
The high gas and the high groceries and stuff. So it is critical to them.
Yeah.
And the Samaritans.
And we're not being nosy, like asking them all these things. We're trying to see if there's other programs or adjustments, like partnering with the Lord and even supernatural wisdom. But like, how can they maybe make some adjustments? Or, oh, you're spending a lot of money in this area. Well, this program provides those things for free.
Right.
If, if
so
you meet this
the
requirement.
food stamp program, it's called SNAP. They had so many benefits that I was even unaware of. And what I have found is so are most other people. And so it can help with.
But you have to ask for them.
You have to ask for them. You have to know about them. And so the Samaritan's job is not to meet the needs of the people that they are paired with. It's just to help them find the resources and let them know there are resources available. And, at the end of the day, we want them to know Jesus and love Jesus. Yeah. And so if we can be the hands and feet, then we can share the gospel with them.
Yeah. That's very cool. So as somebody that's involved in the EOCRC from, I'll say the top level in the sense of like, you're on the board.
Right.
So there's that level of leadership. I know you're not like an officer on the board or anything, but being on the board to being like the volunteer coordinator at a church to being an advisor and a Samaritan, like how do you see the vision actually getting walked out in the Samaritans? Like when you guys meet as a board, like before this facility was finished, you were on the board.
Right.
And everybody knew like, okay, we're going to get a building and it's going to be the place where we can operate out of. It won't be a shipping container anymore. It won't be a hallway. It won't be a closet. It won't be tons of different people. We want somebody that's here to be able to kind of direct it all, which is Jeff. And like, how do you see that like coming to fruition? And what does it do in maybe the hearts of you and the other board members and the confidence and the faithfulness of the Lord?
Man, he has been so faithful. Like the fact that they were able to build this debt free.
We, in the sense of like, the community, the churches, and it's that in and of itself, because along with gas and food prices, building supplies have also went up tremendously. But Jeff is a great example to me of God's faithfulness. So Jeff hasn't been on the board. He hasn't been. He didn't even know much about it.
Right. I don't even think he was really all that involved.
He shared that.
He just recently retired and went to his pastor and said, I'm not just going to sit around the house. And he may not know a lot of the logistics, but he has the heart of it. And so he constantly brings the heart back, and every time he does, like when he brings it back from logistically, how do we handle this situation or whatever, and he brings it back to, remember, we're here to love on them and love Jesus and help them to know Jesus more or whatever. I am like, Lord, it blows my mind that just when the doors were getting ready to open, and because I even kept saying to you, like, man, we got to get on this. Like, I don't know who's going to run this thing, what it's going to look like.
She'd be like, you've prayed about this, right? Has Jesus told you anything?
This is we're getting down to the wire. And because it wasn't just a couple weeks before we opened the doors that Jeff came on. And I think one of the things that I don't think we were necessarily expecting, but that has happened that is very exciting to me, is their heart, EOCRC's heart was always that the churches would come together and take care of our communities.
Yeah.
And so in their minds, what that looked like was on Mondays, Grace Church had the building, and on Tuesdays, Choctaw Road had the building, and so on. Well, what's happened is we, because it happened very quickly, Grace Church couldn't do one whole day by themselves, and it has just morphed into all of the churches working together. Now, I am over, like, we have the pantry this Friday. I am over that, but I'm going to have to call on some other churches and say, does anybody have some advisors that are willing to work on Friday?
Right.
Because ours are busy and I haven't had anybody be able to do it.
Right.
And so
It brings the
it does,
interdependence.
it brings
Yeah.
it, and it puts us all on the same team. Kind of takes us off our own little islands, and kind of puts us all in the same place where we're all aiming for the same thing and going after it together. So that has
We're
been
able
very
to build
exciting.
relationships with each other that way. Yeah.
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 So that part has been very exciting. And did I answer your question? How has
Yeah, just
how have
like-
I seen God come?
Yeah, and how has it grown your confidence as a board? You know, like, I mean, you guys have sought the Lord together, but you've also sought the Lord individually.
Right.
And you've processed through. Like, here's things we want to do. Here's things we know we can do. Here's things we have no clue how they're going to happen. And
But it's in our hearts to do.
yeah, but it's in
Yeah.
our hearts.
It
or
has been-
we need to have this, like, in our, like, this needs to be something we need to do in the future, you know?
I think, just piggybacking off what I said about Jeff, I think in the years prior, we have really, we've seen God provide through stuff, whether it's toys, whether it's food or money. But for me personally, when Jeff came on, it's like he's even going to provide the people. Like, I don't need to stress about the fact that I don't have advisors to do Friday. I can pray. I've asked the Lord to bring
Right.
to the people who need, who will benefit from it or want to be involved in it or whatever. And so, and there's even people outside churches that don't even necessarily, there's just like one or two people in the whole church. But they're like, they are gun-ho, and they're like, can we partner? Can we please have
Yeah.
a spot someplace? And so the
Yes,
people
it's
aspect
yes.
of it, yes, the people aspect of it has been what has grown my faith for the Lord showing up.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah.
Because people can be a little finicky, and I think I needed a reminder that God can move upon hearts sometimes. So.
Yeah. Well, and the Lord's working in your heart, like on a personal basis about this. Like, Jody doesn't have to do it all for it to
Right.
happen.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
Yes.
watch me move.
Yeah.
And
Because
that's
I
cool.
do tend to think I'll just do it. It'll be easier.
And I won't tell anybody about it. I'll just
That's
do
right.
it. It's easier to just do it than to try to get somebody
That's true.
to. Yeah.
It is a struggle for me
And look at
sometimes.
how the Lord keeps setting you into these places to coordinate
Things that
his body.
I can't do by myself. Yes, it's fantastic.
I love it. I know. Because I'm one of the advisors on your team, and I'm going to be in Texas for a conference and cannot help on that
Right.
particular week.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's like, I wonder how God's going to move. Now I would like to just be here because it'd be really cool to partner with people from other bodies.
Right.
Yeah.
And
for
that part
sure.
of it is very fun for me.
Yeah.
It is something
Yeah.
that's always been in my heart. So
Yeah.
I like to see it organically just happening.
Yeah.
And there's not a bunch of schisms, and it's just going towards the same
Yeah.
thing. So
Well, share with me a testimony, and or even if you have a scripture that comes to mind on what that looks like the body doing its part. I mean, obviously, like Romans 12 is one I continually go to, but even a testimony, like how have you seen your time, like in this physical headquarters, I like to call it, but in this physical place, being an advisor or your time as a Samaritan, like what's a testimony that you would like to share of how you've seen the kingdom move?
testimony of how
how he's touched somebody's life.
Well, I think probably the most recent, and it's probably very prevalent in the front of my brain right now because it's still ongoing. We had a gentleman come in, a young man come in last week who is homeless, and he was wanting a shower. Well, we don't have showers, but Jeff told him if he came back during pantry hours, which was the next day, and I happened to be here that day,
Right.
that he could go in the bathroom and clean up. We
Because
would
we
give
do
him
have
some
hygiene kits.
Yep, he gave him some toiletries, and he could go in there and clean up and whatnot. And from that, I was shocked. Like, again, sometimes you don't realize you have preconceived notions until it's like in your face and you're like, oh, that's not what I thought of necessarily. But very clean cut young man. Didn't smell like he needed a shower per se. And so anyways, he got cleaned up. He took a couple of cans of soup. He's walking. He can't carry bags and bags and bags of groceries.
And I want to interject because Cheryl Burke, who heads up our pantry team, like stocking the shelves and inventory and stuff, I think she had asked Jeff when she heard about it, like, well, does he have a can opener? Well, does he have this? Like, how's he going to get the cans open? All that thing. And I love all the little parts.
Yeah,
work
it
together.
is it is fun watching all the different gift sets, like
anyway,
moving.
So he's got a couple cans. He's headed out.
And so he's left, and one of the things that he kept saying was, I just need to get my ID. His ID had been stolen. His wallet had been stolen with his ID and stuff in it. And without an ID, you can't do anything.
Right.
Nothing. Yeah. You can't get assistance. You can't get housing. You can't get a job. And then you can't get an ID without an address. So they're in a vicious cycle that there really is no way out for them unless like people start helping put feet to it. And so that's what we did. We made some phone calls. We have a wonderful lady that attends our church. Sometimes she's downtown now and works with the homeless. And she started sharing with me like the steps that need to happen. And so we were able to meet with her. This young man came with us and she did some paperwork with him and put some things in motion. And I was able to then take him home, not home,
to his
the
place.
woods.
Yeah.
I was able to go with him to get some lunch. And then as we're waiting for lunch, he's just talking and just hearing his story and hearing how he is where he is. And, you know, even that part of the advisory and the Samaritans, like letting somebody tell their story.
Yeah.
And so I'm making up this pamphlet to give to people who sign up to be Samaritans. Like, here's kind of what it is. And I found a saying, and it was something along the lines of, sometimes people just want to be able to tell their story. And I thought, how many times have we thought, I just want to be heard. I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm not asking you to agree. I just want to tell my story.
Yeah.
And
it removes shame because they're able to be heard and be valued in what they're saying, no matter what they're saying. And so shame is such a thief of intimacy. And when they have somebody that's just listening to them,
and even just saying, man, I bet that was hard.
Happens. Right.
Like, you know, when I grew up and realized what my single mom of 3 kids, like I started processing
single mom of 3 kids. Your mom,
my mother,
was single and you were the kid. Yes.
I was like, wow, like that was probably very hard for her. Now, was some of it of her making? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was probably still very hard.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they just need to hear people say, man, I bet that was hard. Yeah. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And then let them leave with some hope. Like, man, it doesn't have to be like this all the time. Like,
that's what I shared when I was visiting with Jeff a few weeks ago is like, the one thing I've seen as an advisor is like they come in and some of them have some hope, but some of them don't, but they leave with hope. And it's just so cool to see that. Yeah.
And it is the kindness of God that leads a man to repentance. And so may they always encounter the kindness of God.
Yeah.
If nothing else. If they get some food in their tummies and encounter the kindness of Jesus.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
what
right.
more?
That's right.
What more?
Yeah.
So,
Well, anything else you want to share? Testimony, story?
I don't think a testimony. I would say probably a hurdle that I've, as a volunteer coordinator, am encountering is that people have a preconceived notion of what a food pantry is.
Yeah.
And
share that.
so it's hard to get people. So we had like 3 main positions that people could volunteer for. And
let me interrupt you because when I was in college, I shared this just briefly with Jeff, and I know there's a promotional video. It was about the grand opening here, but where I shared my story. When I was in college, I was working 3 or 4 jobs. It varied. Going to college full time, just trying to make ends meet, get through. We were becoming friends during that time, and you didn't even know this.
I was like, really, I would have fed her. I promised I would have fed her.
I mean, my boyfriend, who is now my husband, would have fed me too, right? But I was going on Fridays to food pantries to just get enough to make ends meet. And it even really sowed like a lie of lack, which I think some of it was there on part of my family, not all of my family, but part of my upbringing there. But one of the things that when you go to a food pantry, they might keep a record of you so they know if you're a repeat person. But it was like, come in, I got a sack of groceries, and I left. It wasn't like, hey, we want to sit down. We want to, like, what other resources can we help with? And a lot of them prayed with me. But it wasn't like, okay, come and pick out what pasta you'll eat. Come and pick out
You
this.
just got what they gave you.
You got what they gave you. And there wasn't that relational follow-up after, because I know this is where you're going. So, go there.
Yeah. So, it's not that. And it was never meant to be that.
Right.
And so the heart was always to get God's people in front of the people who needed hope and needed to hear the good news or needed to be reminded of the good news, because not every, I mean,
Of his
Christians
faithfulness.
struggle,
Right.
and we need to be reminded that he is faithful and good. And so getting, I had tons of people sign up to stock shelves, and very few that signed up to do the relational end of it.
The advisor and the Samaritan.
And I think it's just from a lack of understanding.
And that's what I want this to be about. Yeah.
I think it's just a lack of understanding. And in their mind, when you say food pantry, they think stock shelves or handout groceries. So it's been harder to communicate. And I've had to do a lot of one-on-one, like, this is what it is, and this is what it isn't. And in my heart, like, just wanting to be sure the people who are signing up to be Samaritans understand what it is and what it isn't, so that they're not carrying a weight that they weren't intended. Like, we never wanted them to carry, nor does the Lord want them to carry it.
Like,
so,
you don't have to be the answer to all their problems. You
right.
just need to connect them to the person that is the answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's probably
I wrote
it.
a note, like, I need to have you back, and let's do we'll do a video that just talks about, like, what does an advisor do? And let's talk about just what does a Samaritan do? And I know I've got a couple of people that are going to be on the series that are going to talk about little aspects of it. Like Jeff and I talked a little bit about it. Shanna and I will. But like, I want to dedicate just one of our nights to an advisor and one of our nights to a Samaritan.
Awesome.
Like, what that is.
Awesome.
And bring a definition to it. I think that'll be very helpful. Because when you realize it's not as, like, we really are sharing the load.
Yeah, because it can sound very heavy.
Right. But
And like, Samaritan would probably be the last thing that I signed up for, even though I love to help care for people, because I think, oh my gosh, one more person.
Right.
And not just one more person, but one more person that has needs.
Right. Right. Because, like, you and your husband, like, you work full time as a pastor, but then you and your husband have a business, and it's horses,
Right.
training horses.
365 days a year.
24 days 24 days or 24 hours a day, all the time. And then your daughter lives with you and your granddaughter, who is
grandbaby.
a toddler. And you guys take care of her while your daughter works and while she goes to school. And like
Right.
all of those things, it can be overwhelming, for that.
If you don't let it carry the appropriate weightiness.
Right.
And that is my prayer. is
and to
that-
understand the functions.
is that it'll carry the appropriate, like sharing the gospel needs to carry a weight in our hearts. It needs to be heavy in our ears. But I can't carry the
his-
responsibility of somebody knowing the Lord
his burden
and-
is light. Yeah.
or meeting all their needs. Like he calls me a child of God. He does not call me their provider.
Right.
And so we have to keep those things and remind ourselves when our,
You mean it's not Jody Jahira?
I mean, maybe
Jody the
JJ.
I'll start calling you that.
No, you're
Yeah.
not.
I might. But now I call her JB a lot.
There you
so,
go.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
thank you for being on.
Well,
and thank you for what
having
you
me.
do. Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, it has. Well, pray for us.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get spiritual now.
We are.
Father, I thank you. I thank you that you are good.
Yeah.
And that you are faithful and you are trustworthy. Father, I thank you that you could do it all, but yet you allow us and you give us the privilege and the honor to partner with you, that you allow us to be part of the stories. And Father, I just pray that for whoever is listening to this, that you would speak to their heart for the part that you have for them to play in the stories that you're writing in the people around them and the people that you desire to bring around them. And I thank you that that we get our strength and we get our joy and we get our empowerment from you. And I just pray blessings over the mission and the heart of the EOCRC, Father. That the churches would come together, that they would be one body, and that they would do the things that we saw Jesus do. And we would do them in the way that we saw Jesus doing them. In Jesus' name.